And thank everyone for joining us this evening. I'm hearing an echo. I hope it's not too distracting. I want to welcome everyone to the June 21st meeting of the Yakima School District Board of Directors. Happy summer solstice to all of you. We do have interpretation services from Andromeda Interpreting Services this evening. If you are in the audience and need translation services, there are translation devices that you can use. Please check in for a device. If Marta's there, she could wave her hand for anyone who needs translation devices. If you are tuning in to the live stream, there is a live streaming Spanish language link to tune into these services. You can find that link on our website at ysd7.org and do a search for board meetings. We offer live streaming options for this meeting. Again, you can find the link on our webpage under Find It Fast or by going directly to ysd7.org/board meetings. We have public comment options at all of our meetings now. You can sign up for public comment prior to the meeting on our website, or if you are in attendance, you may sign in at the podium during prior to that portion of the meeting, and we will call on you that way. If you're interested in past meetings, you can find a link on our website to the Yakima School District YouTube channel to view past meetings that were recorded and posted there. This meeting is also being recorded, and it will be posted up on the YouTube channel in about a week. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett?
Present.
Director Walker?
Present.
Director Navarro Jr.?
Present.
Vice President Villanueva?
Present.
President Rice?
Present.
Martha, before we move on, can we ask Trevor to translate the interpretation service piece?
Absolutely.
¿Hay alguien aquí que necesite servicios de interpretación inglés a español? No, no hay nadie. Okay, gracias. We're good.
Thank you, Dr. Green. We are pleased to have a student leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Is there a representative from Davis High School here to introduce the student?
Yes, it's my pleasure to announce Morgan Green as a fantastic senior artist from Davis High School. You'll see her work, and through effort and great perseverance, she has done amazing art during her high school years at Davis, and I'm very proud to have been her art teacher.
I've been preparing for this my entire educational career. Okay.
Wise guy.
Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morgan is also a recent graduate from Davis High School. We want to congratulate her on that accomplishment. And Morgan, are you prepared to read the character word of the month for us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you. This month's June's character word of the month is focused, a state or condition permitting clear perception or understanding, pay particular attention to.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there are any board members who have questions for Morgan before we move on.
I'll just share a quick comment, Morgan. Thank you for being here. Great job on the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
And really just want to comment on your artwork. I think you're an incredibly talented artist. The artwork over here with the black frame and the red lining is one of your works. And I know that at the Native American celebration, there was another piece of artwork that was shared there. And I just think you're an incredible artist. So thank you for the art that you create and you put out in the world, and wish you nothing but success in your next phase of life.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Just want to thank you for being here. And also, I am proud. I'm an art collector, and I have a Morgan Green in my collection now, thanks to the Native American celebration earlier this spring. So I wish you well in your college efforts at BYU, and hopefully you'll continue with some of the art there as well.
Thank you so much. And that investment will pay dividends. Trust me.
You never know, Morgan. Norm may have a collector's item on his hands. Thank you for joining us this evening, Morgan. I know that we'll see you a little bit later on in the agenda, but I want to thank you for leading us in the pledge as we start this meeting this evening.
Thank you so much, President Rice.
It's my pleasure at this time to read the Yakima Land Acknowledgement. Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor those Native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture. We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today. We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect and a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. It also honors the truth. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relationships with the Yakima Nation. I'm not sure if we have any guests to be introduced tonight. Barb?
There are some students here with their families to be recognized.
Okay. We welcome our in-person guests who are here for the meeting and those who are here to be recognized by the board. Thank you to Eisenhower High School for the use of their auditorium tonight, as we are still practicing social distancing, and this is our largest venue to accommodate this. Next, we have the acknowledgement of accomplishments and recognitions. We have 4 different categories to recognize this evening. First is spring sports, and Director Navarro Jr. Has been asked to read and acknowledge the spring sports recipients.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure how this is going to work out here, but
It's a little bit more challenging than I thought, but
If you just want to read the names, Raymond, I'm sure the
Uh-huh.
certificates are at the table.
okay. All right. So, yes, the board at this time would like to acknowledge students for spring sports. I'd like to, excuse me, let me just start fresh here. The board of directors would like to recognize the following outstanding student athletes who placed at the WIAA state championships for spring sports. So if you're present tonight, I would like you to come forward and receive your certificate, and the board members that are there will be happy to pass those out. So from Davis High School, for WIAA state track, 7th place for the 100-meter ambulatory is Julian Rivera. And I'm just going to keep going because Julian might just want to stay up there because he also placed 4th for ambulatory 200-meter and placed 3rd for the ambulatory 400-meter as well. So congratulations to Mr. Rivera. And also, we like to recognize his coach, Mr. Jose Garcia, WIAA State Championships coach. Next, from Eisenhower High School, placing 3rd, and 4th place in the 800, 1600, and 4x400 meter relay is Isabella Alvarado, the daughter of one of our high school principals, Mr. Lorenzo Alvarado. Congratulations. Placing 4th for 4x400 meter relay, Olive Clark. And placing 1st, 2nd, and 4th in the 800, 400, and 4x400 meter relay, Kara Mickelson. And placing 4th place in the 4x400 meter relay, Sierra Reyes. Placing first, and 2nd place in ambulatory 100, 200, 400, and javelin is Mr. Nick Burton. Placing 3rd and 2nd, ambulatory 100 and 200 meter, Javier Ochoa. Placing 7th in javelin, Jose Ochoa. And placing 8th place in pole vault, Liam Parker. And also WIA State Championship coach, Mr. Phil English. Once again, congratulations to all the Davis High School students and Eisenhower High School students for representing the Yakima School District well at the WIAA State Track Championships. Thank you very much. Back to you, President Rice.
Thank you, Raymond. Mr. English, do you have a few words you'd like to say?
I'll ask him when he gets close to the microphone.
Okay.
He's got some words to say, President Rice.
I had no doubt that you would.
No, the second part of my commencement address.
Oh, okay.
No, just kidding. I understand we had some administrators timing me up there last week, but just a few general comments on, we had a great season. Girls team won league and boys team won districts. I'd like to focus in on the 2 ambulatory athletes, specifically, Nick Burton and Javier. This is the first time we've sent athletes to the state meet. And not alone did Nick have an outstanding performance, but he set a state record in the 200 meters. And I would like to compliment the Yakima School District for taking a proactive step with the ambulatory division. We had more athletes there in that particular category than any school in the state. And of course, they did an outstanding job. And this is something that I think the state is going to continue to expand, which is a really good thing in terms of the development of all students, not just a specific grade of student. So again, thank you for this recognition.
Thank you, Phil. Next, we have recognition for the WIAA State Forensics Tournament. Director Beckett is presenting.
Thank you, President Rice. First and foremost, before we introduce or acknowledge the 4 students who are receiving these recognitions tonight, is Brittany Lewis here tonight. She is our WIAA State Forensics Tournament coach from Eisenhower High School. Brittany here? Just checking before I make everyone stand up to shake hands. Okay. The Board of Directors of the Yakima School District would like to recognize the following outstanding students who competed and placed at the WIAA State Forensics Tournament. From Dwight David Eisenhower High School, we have Ethan Gu, dual interpretation, first place. Luana Wong, dual interpretation, second place. Karen Miller, dual interpretation, first place. Kaya Pancheo, dual interpretation, second place. And if any of you are here tonight, we have certificates and a camera ready. So I would please invite you to come on up. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? We will save these for future presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Next, we have the 2022 OSPI Superintendent's High School Art Show. Director Walker presenting.
Thank you. After winning the Educational Service District 105 Regional High School Art Show, AC Davis High School Junior Isabel Ellis moved to compete in the 2022 Annual OSPI Superintendent's High School Art Show. Isabel's art went on to win a place after competing against all of the ESD winners in Washington State. Congratulations, Isabel. Is Isabel here tonight?
Martha, we can move on.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have recognition of the 2022 Congressional Art Competition. Vice President Villanueva presenting.
Each spring, a nationwide high school arts competition is sponsored by the members of the United States House of Representatives. The Congressional Art Competition is an opportunity to recognize and encourage the artistic talent in the nation as well as in the 4th District of Washington. The Congressional Art Competition is open to all high school students in the 4th District. The winning artwork of our district's competition will be displayed for 1 year in the U.S. Capitol. The exhibit in Washington, D.C. will include the winning artwork from all participating districts from across the country. And I believe the artwork displayed on the stage is the winning artwork, the 4 winners. We have, and if you're here, please make your way up and we'll make our way to the front here and shake your hands. Mia Dufault or Dufault, 2022 Congressional Art Competition, second place. Isabel Ellis, 2022 Congressional Art Competition, third place. Morgan Green, 2022 Congressional Art Competition, first place. And Marlene Martinez, 2022 Congressional Art Competition, fourth place. And their art teacher, Mrs. Carol Hutz, AC Davis High School art teacher.
Thank you all very much. We are amazingly fortunate to have such talented art instructors and talented art students in our district. Next on our agenda, we have a list of gifts to the district. Superintendent Green, would you want to go through this list for us?
Absolutely. There we go. I think I've got it. Absolutely. Thank you. And we want to thank those who were here for the award recognition. As we know, they may be making their way out of the facility at this point. Tonight, it's my pleasure to share with you the donations that we have received over the last several months. And they are as follows. A donation of $119,601 was donated in the form of reimbursement of expenditures of supplies, equipment, and expert services to distribute COVID-19 vaccination and testing materials and implementation of outreach campaigns and host vaccine awareness events. And that was the Health Commons Project. We had a $10,000 donation by the National Association of School Nurses to support programs to increase pediatric COVID access, confidence, and uptake in communities to increase healthy equity. We had a $2,700 donation in the form of WMEA Music Matters grant to buy musical instruments for music classrooms, K-5 students at Robertson Elementary. There was a $2,502 donation by Dutch Brothers in the form of a fundraiser for 3 schools, including Barge Lincoln. A $2,000 donation by Mike Pepper Sims Manufacturing for summer field trip to the Tri-City Steel Band Association. That is the Baliki Steel Drum Band program. And an additional $2,000 was donated for the same purpose by Dustin and Yorimi Kissel for the same summer field trip. There was a $1,500 donation by the Yakima Nation for a leveled library at Gilbert Elementary, and an additional 4 donations from the Legends Casino Hotel, one for $8,642.34 to purchase a spot vision screener to allow more access to vision screening, a $3,500 donation to purchase books for the district, a $1,500 donation for positive behavioral intervention system programs at Davis High School, and another $1,500 for PBIS programs at Washington Middle School. And these are the donations. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Green. Next, we have our reports. The first being reports from members of the board. Are there any board members who wish to report out this evening to make the rest of the board aware of something? Okay, seeing nobody jump up. Next is the superintendent's update. Dr. Green.
Thank you. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening. The first being the absentee report. I will invite Shelby Lockhart to report out to the board as she does monthly on progress and update us on the absentee progress.
Hi, everyone. So this is the June attendance report. Just a reminder that our goal for 2026 is to have 95% of our students attending Yakima Public Schools regularly. So that's a 90% attendance rate for 95% of our students. So June looked a lot better than some of our other months this year. And I cannot see that number and I don't have it memorized, but I know it's a high 2,000 in the red. And I believe that's well, I'm not going to guess. Thank you. It's a little fuzzy from here, so I apologize. Our goal, remember, this year is 79% regular attendance, especially with such a challenging year. That felt like a very realistic goal. So this is, oops, I'm getting too close to that. These are the ranges. Notice that the green and the yellow bars are a lot higher in this last month of attendance. So we definitely had more students attending or not missing a lot of days. Over to the left, we have a very, very small number for that severely chronically absent bar. And do know that at the end here, I have some information about that number. Okay, and then it just goes school by school. And the green is hitting that 79% regular attendance rate. So those are our elementaries, and then these are our high schools. The number of students hitting that yearly goal this year is in green. And I noted this just to remind folks that in January, we started to withdraw students after 20 consecutive days of missing school. So those are our counts by month. And that is why on that previous slide, that bar that just had 3 students was so low. Previously, since the start of COVID, we have not been withdrawing those students. So little change there. And these students, the 532, are who our citywide and now countywide re-engagement task force is starting to work on systems for. It's a longer journey than we can solve in 1 month, but we are looking at how do we re-engage these students as they leave our system. Any questions?
Questions for Shelby? Okay. Thank you, Shelby.
You're welcome.
Martha? Martha, I did have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to be kind of hot on that mic button.
I guess so. So,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
maybe my answer, I don't get the answer today, but I was just interested in what might attribute to those differences with the attendance rates by elementary school. I mean, there's some big differences between like Nob Hill, McKinley, and Barge and Garfield and Ridgeview. So I'm just wondering what do you think might attribute to those significant differences, attendance rates?
So
And-
two things. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
So 2 things I can speak to. Some of our schools, and I'll just say elementary schools this year, were impacted very differently by COVID and quarantine. And so we, in the first month of school, started to see schools have very different attendance rates, just depending on the impact of their building and their staffing, not just their students, but their staffing and the impacts that had. So that's one thing where we're seeing variation in buildings. The other area where we see variation is some of our schools are still working on developing universal supports for attendance. They're in the very beginning phases of that work. And some schools are further along because it's been a focused part of their school improvement plan. And so just depending on the work that they've done or the systems they've put in place universally for every student, every grade, every classroom, you're going to see different results. If they've got universal supports, then they start working on that next tier of support for students who struggle. So it's really a question of if they've built systems of support around attendance in their schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Shelby.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have one question just regarding the efforts to re-engage those 530 students that were withdrawn for chronic absenteeism. Do we have an effort to make a personal reach out to those students so that somebody in person goes to their house and engages with them and sees what's going on and try to get them back into the system?
Yes, it's a great question. So we studied a lot of these students, and there's been multiple home visits. There's been all the universal supports. There's been additional layers of support. There's been community engagement boards. There's been petitions to court, yet still. So it's a lot of times multiple variables impacting the family. And so what we're trying to do is develop an interagency response where the agencies are more networked in a response to those families. What we found in studying those families was that there may be 10 services for that family, but nobody's really talking to each other, and they're getting service fatigue or support fatigue almost, and they're refusing support, if that makes sense. So we're trying to, the city, the county, this task force is trying to get more strategic about how we support a group of 500 students. We're not doing all 500, but we're trying to study how to do that better.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the effort that's going into that.
Yeah. It's a long game. It's going to take some time to figure those out at a county and city level, but we'll get there.
Martha, I do have a follow-up comment. And this is more for the board. And I'm trying to use my equity lens, right? Since we do have equity policy in place, and that's been our focus. I'm just wondering, you know, I'm looking at the stats, especially for the elementary school. You know, I'm trying to figure out, is this an equity issue? Is it, how do we deal with it? How do we know if it's an equity issue? I mean, those are kind of questions that are going through my mind when I see the variation in attendance and by school. So it's just wondering how we can examine that through the lens of equity. I don't know if anybody can help me with that answer.
For sure. There's one tool that we use for academics and behavior, and it's like an audit. So you can have your leadership team at a school or a group of practitioners look at the systems of support for attendance specifically and say, hey, does every student have access to universal support? For example, do teachers greet kids at the door at every threshold? Is there a warm, welcoming environment? Are there these universal things that all of our staff do? That's a community agreement in our school to make sure that our school feels welcoming and kids and families want to come to school. So there's the universal kind of audit of a building you can do, and we do that with our discipline systems and our reading and our math systems. So we wanted to start doing some of that work this year with attendance. We did not go into that auditing space due to COVID. So that's something worth looking at if this next year goes kind of normal, if that's, if we can get into that space. PBIS, the behavior support systems, has integrated a lot of the universal supports for attendance within them. So some of that is starting to integrate also. So we'll be able to look at that building by building.
I'd like to go ahead and add just something, and
Yeah.
Shelby, you can build off of this if necessary, but
Sure.
Director Navarro was asking about, just said that through his mind,
Yeah.
he was wondering about the equity for the individual. And I would submit that these issues are issues that go well beyond what we can do at the schoolhouse, and that there are necessary supports that should be taking place at home as well. And not every child, not every family is created equal. And we know that there are barriers for different individuals. And part of that is developing a system that has, just as you mentioned, Shelby, the wraparound supports of the community. So I think when we're thinking about equity and the equity policy, we're thinking about what happens once they come into our school system. But the way that you framed that question, Director Navarro, it made me really reconsider or think about equity in the form of what is happening in our community and with all of the services or lack thereof, and how that influences outcomes for our students, because we know that the barriers that they have at home oftentimes are not equal across the board, and they need to be addressed by multiple systems, and some of those are within the community themselves. And Shelby, I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
No, thank you for pointing out that it really is a county, a community, a state effort. Attendance it is really challenging to pull it off all by yourself as a public school. So it really needs to be wraparound. And right now, I think there's a lot of power and leverage in our city and our county level. So I hope that we'll all keep advocating for that and supporting that effort to get people more networked and less fragmented in their services for students, because we know who the students are. And oftentimes we have a pretty good sense of where there's been missed opportunities to support them.
And I would also add that I see those numbers, and those numbers are concerning. We also don't know what those numbers would look like had we not put many supports in place. And I look out to my left and I see our Director of Safety and Security, Sarah Cordova, and I think about the Handle with Care program that she's engaged in with our community. So if you're not aware, and this merits repeating, we are in a partnership with our community to notify school leaders anytime there is an issue that happens at home that involves domestic abuse and violence for the students. So when they return to school the next day, or if they're not at school the next day, the principals and counselors are notified about that event that has taken place. So that is a proactive measure, and I can tell you that there have been very few moments where single digits have passed my desk in the morning notifying me of the number of issues of domestic violence that are happening in our community. So I don't know that we have the numbers of how many we have brought back into school with those with that support, but I do think that that's a great example of the school district and the community working together to provide these services and have the communication in place so that we're aware and that people are not falling through the cracks and not being addressed with these critical issues when they return to school. Thank you, Director Cordova. Thank you for that support, and thank you, Shelby.
You're welcome.
So a couple of questions prompted by all this discussion. This is really good discussion. Thank you. Two questions. One is, I think it would be helpful to look at this or chronic absenteeism data through the lens of equity, the way we've looked at the data, race and other subgroups, the 504s and special ed programs as well. So it'd be interesting to see that sliced in that way. But then I wonder, Shelby, if you can share with us if you know, my magic wand question. So if you know, you had a magic wand, what would that community collaboration look like? Who would be the key stakeholders that should be involved to have the perfect wraparound system that would help resolve all the challenge, all the barriers that our kids have?
Yeah, so the magic wand has started waving a little bit, but it hasn't done a full wave. But city and countywide data sharing agreements so that we can all know what we can know legally about students and support them and not have to wait so long to share information, which is happening. I know there's been a lot of work around data sharing and information sharing.
And does that, let me ask you a clarifying question. Does that mean programs like what Sarah Cordova is talking about, data
Correct.
where with the police or the sheriff's office? Okay.
Yes, and that without having a solid number has had a huge preventative impact. We've been able to look at those numbers and say this is working, and we don't have to wait till they leave school. We've prevented them from leaving school because of that data sharing agreement. So having our county and our city agencies all in one hub, I know the ESD is looking at Unite Us as a data hub where we can share with agencies, with students, and it can be legal, and it's not a invasive data sharing. It's just a way to help us communicate about supporting families. So that's the data piece. The leadership piece, magic wand, get county, city, community, school, everybody on a cycle of 3 summits a year, really talking about this problem of fragmented services and get services integrated or coordinated more. So I would do those 2 waves of the magic wand to start, leadership and data sharing for sure. Because we have a lot of services, we just aren't always integrated. And like I said, sometimes we over-service families and then they get fatigued or confused, or there's too many flyers on their doorstep. And it's not an effective response when they have multiple things happening that are keeping them from going to school.
And did you see that the summit is happening or will begin to happen, or is that?
So the county sent out some emails to start planning for something like that.
Okay.
So nothing is official or formal, but there's a group of people throughout the city and the county that are wanting more. And I think it started with the Domestic Violence Initiative and Chief Murray and a lot of other leaders. So I think there's just, I know people are getting more organized to bring this to the table and help problem solve collectively.
And do you know if local health leaders are involved in that effort as well?
They will be invited.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I do have one additional question or comment. You know, just from the research that I've seen, that there is a correlation between attendance and academic achievement, good grades. So I know Dr. Green had mentioned that the numbers don't look good. So would that be, are we going to predict, can we predict the academic achievement of our students this next go around? I'm just wondering, those are just some thoughts that I'm having, some questions. And I'm looking forward to our equity training, because I guess I'm getting confused on what is the definition of equity. And so I'll leave that for a discussion for another day.
Okay.
I just have one question, if I may. Shelby, thank you for the information, as always.
Mm-hmm.
You began this evening when we were talking about attendance rates, particularly at the elementary schools. And you said something, and it may have been an off-the-cuff remark, so don't take this the wrong way, but it referred to COVID affecting schools differently or communities differently.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that we can glean from that, or was that merely an off-the-cuff remark? Because in my perspective, I see it as COVID is everywhere and it affects everyone, and it's still here and it's going to be here.
Yeah.
But is there something that we can be doing differently to address that,
I can
particularly at the elementary
clarify.
schools?
Yeah, what I meant from that was that one elementary school was impacted differently than another, like the counts or the quarantine counts were higher at different times, or the staff illness was, they just had a higher impact. It was harder to sustain a universal support for attendance with regular phone calls home. All those things that a building wanted to do sometimes was more challenging than the building down the street, because they were just getting different levels of illness. Does that make sense?
It does.
Times?
I guess my underlying question was in regards to the actual numbers within the community of that school, as opposed to a district-wide response. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about universal supports and a warm welcome at every classroom with a teacher standing there, or a warm welcome at the front door, or a phone call home from the core teacher that knows the family, if one building is having higher quarantine rates of their staff or their students, that becomes challenging, versus down the road, another building might not have been experiencing that, so they can sustain those universal supports and keep their attendance supports in place. So district-wide, doing our best to staff, which I really believe we did everything we could this year to staff our buildings, including having the assessment department go staff buildings, right?
Agreed.
So I think we did all we could, honestly. I don't know. I think it's worth continuing to read up on, and if
Thank you.
hopefully it never has to happen again, but.
Any other questions? Thank you, Shelby.
You're welcome.
I know I've thanked you 3 or 4 times already during your report. So, Mr. Superintendent, would you like to continue, please?
Yes, I have a couple more items. I'll start in inverse order. We do have much summer professional development going on, and I thank Dr. Rodriguez, Jenny Rodriguez, for her work to put together the summer calendar, which is attached to your board docs. We are calling it, I believe, PD Palooza. So I'm sure that next summer we will probably have T-shirts made up and everything else. But if you take a look at the documents that are accessible, you'll see that there are quite a bit of offerings that are taking place over the summer. In fact, Dr. Rodriguez and I this morning we actually kicked off a meeting around our dual language development, and it was wonderful to see all of the first grade and kinder teachers ready to engage in Goal 4, bilingual, biliterate by graduation, along with their principals and other staff members. So we're very excited about the direction of the district and following our strategic plan. So I wanted you to be able to see all of the events that are happening this summer. And again, I thank Dr. Rodriguez for putting that together. along those lines, I'll just pass this over to her with the update on summer school itself. So Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Dr. Green. We kicked off summer school actually today. So for our high school students, we started our first session. We're hosting 2 summer sessions, 2 weeks in length each, for students to complete retrieval credits with a primary focus on our seniors. So our goal is to help as many seniors as we can to finish up for a summer graduation. And there are a few additional students that are also working towards retrieval credits this summer. Those classes are full days. There's an AM session, PM session. Breakfast and lunch are provided, and those run through July 15th. For our middle level students, our 21st Century site at Washington Middle School needed to relocate. So students are actually being served with that program at Davis High School due to some capital facilities improvements at Washington over the summer. And they have classes beginning this Thursday. Those will also run for the full 4 weeks through July 15th. And for our littlest learners, our elementary students, we are hosting programs at 6 of our elementary sites around the district. We've partnered up schools, in most cases 2 elementaries together. With our smallest 3 schools, they are partnered together. And each of our ILTs at each of those elementary sites identified students most in need of acceleration and support. So those students and families were invited for our 4-week camp. It is being facilitated by ESD 105. They've been amazing partners in this process, along with support from our operations teams in nutrition services, transportation, and health services here at Yakima School District. So we've had a wonderful number of partners to ensure that our students most in need of services this summer are able to access those. They are STEM integrated units of study with a heavy emphasis on literacy. The kids are going to have a great time. They're not even going to know how much they're learning, but they're going to be learning a lot. So we're very excited about the growth that they'll be making over the summer. I mean, who doesn't want to be at Pirate Camp, Dr. Green?
Pirates, yep. Are we having a cadet camp too? Nope. Okay, oops. All right, thank you. Next year, we'll do the cadet camp also. The last item that I have, we're entering a time period after today where we have a bit of a break between this and the next business meeting, which will take place, I believe, on July 26th. So it is important to update the board on the budget dates that are coming forward. We have the preliminary budget that will be made available to members of the board on July 6th. So you will expect a notification on that date with access to the preliminary budget. It will be made available widely to our community on the website on July 8th. And then the preliminary budget will be presented to the board on July 26th at our next business meeting. A public hearing will then take place the subsequent Monday, which is August 1st. And that will be an opportunity for the community to comment on the budget and present any questions, after which time there will be a couple of weeks before the final budget is presented and adopted by the board, and that will take place on August 17th per WAC 392-123-054. Are there any questions on the budget dates? And if not, that will conclude my superintendent update.
Any questions for Dr. Green?
Wonderful. I just do want to thank Becky Neeson for working on the budget. I know that that is a monumental task, and of course, she does have some more time to finalize that for the board, and we thank her in advance.
Thank you, Dr. Green. And you're correct. That is a monumental undertaking to get that budget pulled into place. Next, we have the monthly financial update with the fabulous Becky Neeson.
Well, thank you, President Rice, members of the board. This is your May 31, 2022 financial status update. And I'll just draw your attention to the executive summary items. Good news, the district received $609,000 in federal local effort assistance. So due to this, these funds were provided through the legislative session under Substitute House Bill 1590. This is a recalculation of our local effort assistance dollars based on enrollment declines. So we got 609 currently in May, and we'll get 355,000 in April of 2023. This evening, we'll look at some new ESSER 3 slides in the slide presentation. And then the third bullet is we continue to see slight declines in enrollment. We're down 2% in K-12 and ALE and 1.2% across all district programs against the budget. Okay, so this is the enrollment slide. And the next slide is the cash flow. There isn't anything too much to point out, or excuse me, that was not the cash flow. That was the enrollment across against the budget. I got ahead of myself there. This is the general fund revenue slide. We're slightly above budget. And this is the cash flow. So we're trending just about where we should be. The next slide is our total expenditures. We're just slightly above budget. And this is the payroll slide. Again, just slightly above as we head into the last months of school. We see an uptick due to retirement, cash outs, and final payments for folks who are leaving or who have held their timesheets till the end of the year. Oops, Barb, you got ahead of me. It's okay. So this is the MSOC slide. We're slightly up against the budget. Okay, you can move forward now. The ESSER 2 expenditure slide. So this we have readjusted. If you'll look at total expended for the year, or excuse me, so what I've added on here in the expended column is just a reminder of when we started spending the dollars, and that was back in April 30th of 21. And this goes through May 31. So we have expended 21 million. We have left encumbered the 1.3 million. What that reflects are salaries and benefits for folks that are paid under our ESSER 2 grant. And then we have a balance of 395,000 left under ESSER 2. The ESSER 3 slide, we move forward. So we have shifted, if you'll look under the expended column, we have expended 1.2 million. The 1.1 million under item 1 is the air filters that we purchased for classrooms. We have encumbered 1.4 million, leaving the 38.5 million. This is the district portion of our ESSER 3 ARP funds. And the last slide is the ESSER 3 learning recovery. The total available on that one is the 10.3 million. We have expended under the school engagement and accelerated learning. This is our after-school program and our partnership with ESD 105, leaving us a balance of 8.9 million in our learning recovery. So I'll entertain any questions you might have, comments.
Any questions for Becky?
I just have one. The fantastic summer development for staff that's coming up this summer. Is that coming, some of that coming out of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding?
Dr. Rodriguez?
We are paying for some of the expanded summer school opportunities for students utilizing ESSER funding. We really wanted to put those dollars towards student recovery efforts. For all of our adult professional learning, we're actually utilizing existing dollars through special programs. We had significant carryover funds in Title I, so we're utilizing that to pay for our PD Palooza hours for teachers to engage in professional learning of their choice, as we're really moving our professional development towards an individualized learning model for adults as well as kids.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky?
I don't get the magic wand question. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Becky. This brings us to the first opportunity for comments from the public. This particular opportunity is available for comments from the public on agenda items only. We will have another comment period at the end of the meeting to address any other issues or comments. Barb, is there anyone who has signed up to speak at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then we're going to move directly to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, it provides an opportunity for the board to dispense with any business items with one vote. These are items that routinely come before the board or are required board approval by state law or ordinance. Tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of meeting minutes for May 9, 17, 23, 24, and 31 of 2002. Notification of approval of warrants for May 2022. And tonight's warrants consist of 4 groups of general fund warrants, 2 groups of ASB warrants, 1 group of capital project warrants, and 1 group of payroll warrants. Item number 4 is approval of personnel actions. We also have approval of out of endorsement assignments, as well as budget status reports for May of 2012. Is there any board member who wishes to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate action and/or discussion? I don't see anyone jumping up. So I would entertain a motion for approval of tonight's consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Ryan. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to our action items. First item is approval to purchase an accredited digital basic education and diploma program. Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, President Rice. It's my pleasure to be before the board to request an approval to purchase the accredited digital basic education and diploma program. We have gone through a formal RFP process, RFP number 01-2223. The selected bid is with Imagine Learning, also known as Edgenuity, which is the current service that we utilize for this purpose. The purchase price is $405,000. It will be supported through the use of ESSER funds, and it provides both digital and some workbook supports. This is a contract for next school year, 2022-23, with possible 2 one-year extensions for the 2 following years. Imagine Learning is a digital-first K-12 program for core instruction. This is the platform that we utilize for our K-12 virtual learning programs, which are continuing into next year. They do provide rigorous coursework. They also provide for credit retrieval, and courses are aligned to grade level standards. In addition, teachers, when utilizing the platform, get real-time data and reporting features that help to track student engagement and progress. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Rodriguez? Hearing none, I would entertain, the board has been asked to approve the award. I'm sorry, let me start again. The board has been asked to grant approval to award the RFP number 01-2223 to Imagine Learning or Edgenuity in the amount of $405,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Graciela. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we're asked to approve the purchase of mathematics curriculum from Great Minds PBC for the 2022-23 school year in the amount of $215,991.06. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Rice. I am seeking that the board grant approval to renew this curriculum purchase for the next school year. Again, this is a renewal of a platform that has existed in use in our district for some time now. It is being funded through the use of ESSER funds. Great Minds does provide mathematics curricular materials, including digital access for all elementary students and for students at higher grade levels who may need it in alignment to their individualized education plan. We do anticipate using these materials for next year, 2022-23, as well as the following school year, 2023-24, which was when we are scheduled for a full K-12 math curriculum review cycle. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Rodriguez?
Just one.
Go ahead.
If I lost it, but when we're up for a new review cycle, does that mean it is reviewed from not just curriculum, but from where the funding comes from again next year? And
They're really two separate processes. So we look at the funding on an annual basis for purchases. We have worked very closely between the Teaching and Learning Department and our Fiscal Services Office this year to ensure that our levy dollars are being utilized in the way that voters approved with the last levy. They do include purchases for curricular materials. So the bulk of our funds for new curriculum adoptions actually comes through levy funds, which is why levies are so important for learning.
we've used it from levies in the past. We're able to use it for ESSER this year, and in the future it may be levy again. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions for Dr. Rodriguez? Okay. Hearing none, the Board of Directors is asked to grant approval to renew mathematics curriculum from Great Minds PBC in the amount of $215,991.06. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ryan, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we've got permission to award the construction contract for the renovation and/or upgrade of Discovery Lab, the Early Learning Center, to M70 Construction, Inc., in the amount of $363,130. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Rice. On behalf of Dr. Rob Darling, our Deputy Superintendent, and Jay Baucom, our Assistant Director of Maintenance, I am coming before you to approve or request your approval to award the construction contract for the renovation and upgrade of the Discovery Early Learning Center, to award that contract to M70 Construction in the total amount of $363,130. The renovation and upgrade of the current site is to bring the campus up to code and ready to house preschool age students. As you are likely aware, the rules for preschool students differ slightly from K-12 education, so there are some pieces of work that need to occur, including removal of structures attached to walls, replacement of some flooring to adhere to particular height rules, painting, some window trim, casing, sills, plumbing, and installation of cabinetry to customize it for the needs of preschools. The remodeling work is scheduled to be finalized by August 18th, 2022, and we will house the majority of our preschool students at that campus this fall. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Rodriguez? Hearing none, the board is being asked to approve the request to award the construction contract for the renovation and upgrade of the Discovery Early Learning Center to M70 Construction in the amount of $363,130. Do I have a motion?
So
So-
moved.
Second.
Moved by Graciela, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we're being asked to approve our entry into an interlocal cooperative purchasing agreement with the City of Seattle. Sarah Cordova presenting.
Thank you, President Rice and members of the board. Thank you, Andy. So we're requesting that the Board of Directors grants permission to the Purchasing Department to enter into an interlocal cooperative purchasing agreement with the City of Seattle. It aligns to YSD strategic goal number 2, empowered, connected, supported, and engaged, and also for the safety and security of students and staff with YSD. The fiscal impact is $129,000, $129,879.54. The district will be using ESSER funds and will be purchasing Motorola radios and ancillary equipment for Davis and Eisenhower High Schools. RCW 28A 335190 requires the board to solicit bids for items or work that exceed $75,000. RCW 39.34 allows local governments to enter into mutually beneficial agreements. Participation in this agreement allows the district to satisfy bid requirements because the cooperative has already taken the required steps to satisfy compliance requirements when it procured the available services the district is interested in procuring.
Are there any questions for Sarah?
Yes, I do have one. Can you define or tell me what includes ancillary equipment?
So my office manager and I have been working this year and trying to get the radios for Davis and Eisenhower. And one of the situations that we found ourselves in is that we needed some additional radio towers in order to transmit the signal across the entire building for both Davis and Eisenhower. The buildings are so large that we needed some extra equipment that we weren't we didn't realize that we needed to have that.
Does it include any other equipment or just the towers?
I believe there were some routers also involved.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
Any other questions from board members? Hearing none, the Board of Directors is being asked to grant permission to the Purchasing Department to enter into an interlocal cooperative purchase agreement with the City of Seattle for $129,879.54 for the purchase of Motorola radios and ancillary equipment for Davis and Eisenhower High Schools. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Graciela. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Director Rice?
Yes?
I'd just like to comment and thank you for supporting this purchase. We've had some dead spots, so to speak, at both Eisenhower and Davis, where coverage of the what are we calling it? The walkie-talkies we're not actually accessing. I know I lost the term there for a second. So having these now in place is going to make for greater safety and security for our students and for our staff. And I know that we're passing down what we're currently using to our middle schools, so they will not be lost in the process. And it therefore provides greater security for our middle level learners as well. Am I accurate in all of that, Sarah? Is there anything else you would like to add?
Some of the radios may also be going to the elementaries as well. So it just depends on how many are still in good working order and how many are needed at the other schools. But yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that elaboration. Next, we have an action to approve an edit to policy 1000.3.9, the process for addressing board member violations. The board recently went through a review of this particular policy, and it was agreed that we should fine tune it a little bit. So Director Navarro Jr. Led us in that process. This will be the second reading for this policy. And Raymond, do you want to elaborate at all on this?
Sure. I just want to thank the board for really looking at this policy and coming up with the update. And really, what it's really addressing is just due process and having a clearly defined process for when there is a violation or a board member finds himself or herself in violation, that there's a due process. So I feel comfortable with this, and that should take care of any past issues that we may have had going forward. So thank you, President Rice.
Thank you for posting the edit for us. So we are being asked to approve policy 1000.3.9, an edit to this particular policy, which is the process for addressing board member violations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Norm, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We've reached the second opportunity for comments from the public. This would be on all and any issue outside of an action item. Barb, has anyone signed in?
No, they have not.
Okay. Mr. Superintendent, do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
Okay. Board members, I'd like to hear from you as to your availability for a short executive session, hopefully before the end of the week. This would be for performance of a public employee. If you just want to email me or text me with your availability, it doesn't have to be during the day. It can be early evening. I'd like to get this done before the end of the week. Is there objection?
Martha, I missed the question. Are you asking the board to let you know our availability?
Yes, please.
Oh, sure. Okay.
For a short executive session, I'd like to get it accomplished before the end of the week.
Okay.
Okay? So just email me or text me or call me with your availability. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, appropriate wait time.
Could we remind everybody where our meeting is in
Oh,
July?
absolutely. Our next meeting is July 26th, and it will be at the central office, the district office at 104 North 4th Avenue at 7:00 p.m. Is there anything else? Okay. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your attention and attendance tonight. I appreciate very much your participation in our meeting, and I hope that you all have a wonderful month before our next business meeting in July. Take care, everybody. Drive safe going home.